Welcome to the Boosting Achievement ESL podcast. I am your host, Dr. Carol Salva. In this podcast, I'm chronicling my journey of learning about the best ways to support multilingual learners and the teachers who teach them. This is episode 128. And before we get started, I want to make sure that you know about Voice Ed Radio. Check it out at voiced.ca. It's education radio 24 hours a day. All right, you're going to love my guest. You're going to love my guest today. You probably already know Larry Ferlazzo. Who doesn't know Larry Ferlazzo? If you don't, he's the guy. He is the guy. I say this all the time. If you're just going to follow one person, he is the filter for all the stuff going on out there in education. And we're so fortunate, folks that listen to this show, because he was a newcomer teacher. He was also a social studies teacher and teaches IB classes to non-ELL students and ELL students alike in Luther Burbank High School in Sacramento. And he's done that for decades. He is retiring from the classroom. This is not a retirement show, though. There are several that I link in the show notes because they're so good. But I needed Larry's voice because we're going into a school year, and I wanted to do a back to school show like I always do. What do we do in the first weeks of school? But it's such a challenging year. It's a different kind of year. And I am getting a lot of questions about, well, what's the hope right now? What are we supposed to do with what's happening in the world if you are the newcomer teacher? You're going to love this show. You're going to love it. First of all, we talk about what kind of mindset and what kind of things to keep in mind. And then the end of the show, we do talk about what do you do the first week of school? What are the practical, actual things that Larry did if he was going back in the classroom right now, what he would do the first couple of weeks and what I would do the first couple of days and weeks of school. So hopefully it's helpful. I really enjoyed it. It certainly lightened my heart and is pointing me in the right direction. And I'm ready to double down and advocate even more for our students. So let's go ahead and jump right in and hear about Larry and his perspective and this conversation we have about how to start this school year, 2025-2026. All right, let's go. And stick around for after the show so I can tell you where we can connect. Let's go. Larry Ferlazzo, welcome to the Boosting Achievement ESL podcast.
Thank you. It's just about the best podcast out there for ELL teachers.
That is so kind of you to say that. That's so kind. I appreciate you coming back on this. I mean, we could spend the whole time talking about your contributions and how grateful I am that you're not leaving the field. You're just stepping away from the classroom, right?
Yeah, just taking a break, well, a forever break from 20, from a full-time ELL teacher position as I was retired and doing volunteer work at the juvenile hall as a volunteer teacher and doing a little work with Sidlets. And Katie and I are in the middle of finishing up probably will be our final ed book. So
Wow. So you're still, people rested, when I tell people, do you hear Larry's retiring? And they're like, what? But he's still going to write his column. He's still going to be around. He's still going to help us out. So when you say it's a good podcast that I do, it's such an honor because we're all learning so much from you. I mean, you're just the top guy for so many of us. And so
well,
we're
you're
excited
you're
for you.
you're very kind. You're very kind.
Yeah, well, I did want to mention that, there are multiple retirement shows that you've done recently. And I was listening to them when I was on vacation, which is great. So I'm going to embed those in today's show notes because the advice that you give and your reflections and everything, I want people to have access to the other podcasts you've been on because we're going to talk about two things specifically. For starting the school year. But I do appreciate that you've done shows where you've talked about what people need to keep in mind working with ELs and what your thoughts about stepping away and everything. But I did want to reach out to you to see if you would do this show with me because we're starting again a school year in a challenging climate. Again, We're just talking about the realities of the messaging that our families, our immigrant families, are feeling, and what it feels like to be a newcomer teacher, to be the teacher of the newcomer students in a challenging climate. So the questions that I get and that I think about are what kind of mindset to go into the year with for my own self if I'm that teacher, and then some top tips like we do every year uh, for the ESL classroom. And you were at Luther Burbank, you were you had other classes, but you were the ESL newcomer teacher for at least a section or two, right?
Yes, yeah, I was a newcomer teacher for the last uh 18, 19 years. Yeah, so yes.
In an urban school with a revolving door, sometimes you had kids throughout the year coming in secondary, in high school.
Yeah, and I think that's typical for every newcomer class anywhere. Every month we would get one or two. And I
Yeah.
also, I mean, I taught English proficient students in classes and intermediate classes as well. But yeah, but the newcomer class was an annual class that I had each year.
So I like a lot of people take advantage of so many of your resources. And then for me personally, I've got this laser focus on what you're doing for that newcomer class. And
Hmm.
then this show, we do focus on for the new arrival students, for the teacher that's primarily teaching them. So that's why I want to put a lot of links in the show notes for whatever you teach, you get something out of these shows. But I do have a big question. If you were doing that again, if you were setting up your classroom right now, how you're going into this, because I'm getting so many questions about how we know it's challenging for the parents, we know it's challenging for the students. There's more fear than in years past. How do I, as a teacher, keep my mindset productive when I know their world is so challenging?
Hmm.
What would you say if you were in an elevator with somebody that asked that?
Well, I think there are several key points that EL newcomer teacher need to keep in mind, particularly this year, though every year, but particularly this year. One, and then after I'll just quickly mention those 4 points, and then we can talk about the specifics of what they look like. But one is helping students and in your classroom create the conditions where they feel agency. I mean, as you know, Carol, that lots of our students, generally have very little voice in coming to this country, right? Because they're brought by their parents, so they tend to not have a big sense of agency because of that. But particularly this year, I think it's important for teachers to create opportunities for students to feel that they have some agency because of everything that's going on around them. They don't know if their parents are going to be home that day, many of them. Uh, Two, make sure that students feel like you are an ally. Your students and your families feel like you're an ally, that you're there with them. Uh, Three, I think create opportunities for humor and distraction in the classroom, right? It's to try to get students' minds off of what they might be facing in today's world. Um, try to create a sense of safety in your classroom and in the school. Um, and then I think, added to all that is just help students feel good about themselves. So I think if I was going into the classroom, this year, those would be the top things that I would be thinking about.
So let me make sure. And like you said, let's talk about each one. We said agency,
Right, right.
make that a priority that they start to feel that they do have agency. Two is distraction and humor.
Right.
Did I say those in the right order that you said them first?
I didn't list them in any order of priority.
They are equally important. It's not
Right.
like do this first and this first and this first. Let's start with agency. To you, well, I feel like agency means I have some control over my destiny. Is that how you feel that agency feel is?
Yes, I think that's a really critical part. I think another equally important part, which a lot of people miss, is, and I think it's equally important for teachers to be aware of this, is acknowledging that out in the world, there are some forces and people and institutions who are going to be opposed to your sense of agency, and to we have to prepare students in the skills needed to be able to deal with that. So, that sometimes, and actually probably most of the time that I have heard agency talked about in the field of education, that part is missed.
Yeah.
I think that that is a major oversight that we need to make sure that we don't miss. It's sort of this idea, that's pushed by some, that social emotional learning is really what all, people need, our students need. And it's like, let them eat SEL, right? That it's without acknowledging that it's just part of it, but that there are forces and institutions and people who uh, really are responsible for some of the root causes that create the need for SEL.
Well, that makes sense. So I'm thinking of something that we say a lot, or that I know I say a lot in my professional development trainings is, and I try to keep in mind, is that we're growing people. It is not just about a lesson. You are growing, you are one of the people. We're all doing this together, but we're growing humans, and it's a long game. This
Right.
is critical for when we're talking about the students with limited education or the students that come without formal education. Okay, yes, but that's not the only education that they want. I mean, that's not the only type of education. And it's a keep moving forward kind of thing and a long game kind of thing. And then I can go back to the teenagers living at my house. It's the same. I want you to know that life is a journey, and the journey is not a straight line. There are going to be setbacks, and there's what you just said. I want to say to my kids later today, there will always be challenges and obstacles, and there might be points in your life where people don't want you to succeed. That's life. That's not, that is the reality of life. And so we're not saying that things are not going to happen in your life in the near future or the distant future. We just want to
Mhm.
help you prepare for life.
Exactly.
But I
Exactly.
agree with you. It's more important now than ever that we push these thoughts for ourselves to the forefront.
Yes.
Is if you can think about what if they are only here one, what if I only have a student one day, and that's a reality, it might be. What would be the major messages I would
Hmm.
like them to hear from me
Hmm.
that will serve them?
And I think there are lots of ways that teachers can create the conditions where students feel a sense of agency, ranging from providing choices,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that do you want to read this book? Do you want to read this book? I mean, do you do you want to have this, play this learning game or play this, that learning game? Choices promote a student's sense of autonomy. I'm a big advocate of inductive learning and inductive teaching, where instead of deductive, where you give, explain the concept, and then follow it up with examples. You give examples and have students act as detectives to try to figure out what the concept is, whether it's listing a bunch of sentences using have and has, and have students try to figure out, what are the common elements where has is used, and what are some of the common elements where have is used?
Right.
What's the lesson? What are the rules and how to use it?
And
Um,
this goes hand in hand. I recommend all the time. I recommend people, if they want intrinsic motivation support. And we even included it in the new Boosting Achievement book for newcomer teachers, a section on Larry Ferlazzo's top tips for intrinsic motivation. I know we cited your latest with the student handbook for motivation, and those four things you keep coming back to,
mhm.
and choice, that autonomy piece, is a big part of it.
Right, right. It's
One of
really
those.
key. And but yeah, autonomy, relatedness in terms of, is what you're asking students to do going to bring them in relationship with someone they like or respect. Relevance is what you're doing, asking them to gonna connect to their dreams, and their hopes. So those are, critical elements for that. And speaking of your book, by the way, you should expect to get some questions from me for an Ed Week interview soon.
Oh, I'd love to. Anna Mattis, my co-author, and I, we just are so tickled for that one. Thank you. It's such a collaborative effort because it has so many what newcomer teachers have done over the past few years. So there's just all these examples. But yeah, to your point, we we get so much further in every year, not just a challenging year. Every year we get so much further. So we included that because if students want to do things, of course, our jobs all become so much easier. So in your example of having kids look at have and had, yes, you're still teaching the structures and the syntax, but you're offering them agency there in, the choices and the conversations and how they do things. So it's not something separate that we're
Right.
offering with this. There are all these ways to give students that feel that they have some control. It leads to motivation, but it also starts growing a person that feels like they can make choices that direct their lives. Yeah.
And I think in terms of the element of helping students be prepared to deal with challenges, challenges to their agency, it's interesting that what I would usually do and what I've done for most of my teaching career is work with students uh, on what's sort of a Freirean model. It's something that I picked up from an old Peace Corps manual on teaching ESL and how they apply Paulo Freire's teaching methods. That it's sort of a sequence where they show students a picture of a problem. Maybe they're being bullied on the ground in a playground, students being bullied in a playground, or someone. I would show a video clip of Les Miserables at the beginning where the father is getting arrested for robbing bread to feed his family. And the first question is, what is the problem? Since I figure this out, uh, have you ever experienced this problem, or do you know of someone who has? What are some potential solutions to the problem? What is the best solution to the problem? And then is that a problem that enough people in our class have that we should do something about?
Wow.
Uh, and out of that, people or our classes have done a lot of community issues ranging from organizing, inviting attorneys to come in to answer immigration questions to getting job training agencies to come and do a presentation to organizing an outreach program to make sure that residents would fill in complete U.S. Census forms. The tricky part now that I would not do that in that precise way right now because I don't think it is um, really appropriate, safe, or smart for us to encourage our students to become part of public life right now in this climate. However, it uh, how I would do it is how I did it in some years, that the issues that students have identified have been issues within the school. You know,
Okay, yes.
that they have had students do interviews with all their classmates and other students in the school. And for example, last year, the big issue was wanting the cafeteria to have more halal food,
Mm,
right? So I think creating situations where students can identify issues within the school that they would like to organize around, um, that is a safe strategy to help develop agency in this political climate.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And that the things that you're doing, I'm going to keep coming back to that, is that it's not just about a lesson. It's
mhm.
the takeaway is we can affect change, or I can help affect change, maybe. Yeah, I can see. I mean, if I am the newcomer teacher, I have been hired. If I'm the ESL, or a lot of places it's ELD, English Language Development Teacher for the brand new students at the level one, I have been hired to support them to become more fluent in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Nobody's going to argue with that. That is the job. You are to help them become more fluent listening, speaking, reading, and writing. That is not at all separate from what Larry has just described. In fact, I'm imagining my classroom being so interested in this topic. It's a compelling topic. And so you've got your sentence starters and you've got your echo reading and you've got kids using as much English as they can. And maybe
and
when
having to and having to talk with the cafeteria manager, or, about it, right? I mean, in
100%.
English,
100%.
right?
Let's all write something and I'll scribe it if I need to, but some of the kids won't need me to do that. There's all these different levels of how they might write in reflection, write about this, either a little bit each day or a big reflection. There's all of it. There's the
And
research. There's so much.
and we teachers can do, when I was a community organizer before I was a teacher, we talked about fixed fights where to help build people's confidence that as a teacher with the halal, I set it up that the cafeteria manager was obviously going to be supportive of it, right? I mean, we're not trying to create situations where the cafeteria manager or the principal is an enemy,
Of
or an
course.
opponent, but you want to set, I mean, it's in everybody wants students to have agency in most schools, so yeah, everybody, goes along. So I don't think it's that hard to create those situations, whether it's, they want halal food or, more, we want to have access to soccer balls during lunch, those things that are
Yeah,
authentic.
that authenticity that changes the game
Hmm.
for just the effect of anything that I was trying to do. If I could be more authentic about it or have them actually talking to people, actually using their language in an authentic way. And there's just so many things. And I've done shows about that, and you have too. And so we're kind of bleeding over into the safety, making
Mhm.
sure, you said another big point was making sure that your classroom and your time with them feels very safe, right? Wasn't that one of the points?
Yeah, I think that that's really, really critical. Safe in the sense that uh, one school, that administrators and teachers and districts are all on the same page about how to deal with ICE if they come to the school or come to the school parking lot, to uh, to hopefully having access to counselors to provide mental health support. Plenty of research has shown that fear of family members' deportation has a significant negative impact on students' mental health and their academic growth. Uh, a culture in the classroom where it's okay to make mistakes and those are celebrated and what we learn from them. Those kinds of actions can enhance a student's feeling of safety, which we want, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah. With that fear, that affective that filter that goes up from Krashen's work. Learning doesn't go through that very well. Safety, when we talk about safety, that would even be, um, again, we can go back to the very fundamentals of I'm supposed to have someone become more fluent in speaking. Okay, well, demanding English only in a classroom
right.
when
Right, right,
everybody is under a spotlight is just not a safe, low filter kind of thing, low stress. But echo reading a quick sentence or two each day in a content class and a lot in the newcomer classroom is a very safe way to have kids practicing oracy, and it makes more sense. So the safety thing is a big in more than one way. The other thing, another one that you spoke about with that we're talking about also is distraction and humor. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like in the first few weeks of your
right.
class.
Well, I think all of us, if we're undergoing stress, we welcome distraction, right? I mean, if I'm undergoing stress, I love going to play basketball or pickleball, and I just focus on that and don't think about the other stuff. So creating an atmosphere of fun. I mean, you can learn English through playing games, right?
Right?
As everybody knows, there's countless games you can play, both old style with like everybody having mini whiteboards or fly swatters swatting up against words on the whiteboard, to online games like quizzes, which is now Wayground, and or Kahoot or
It's my favorite, right?
yeah. So and teachers can crack jokes, right? I mean, and we can make fun of ourselves and
We do.
joke. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Right, right. Just even showing you have so many that I'll try to put in the show notes. Remember to do that. You have so many quick little videos that have no language that are perfect. And you even say best videos for the newcomer classroom, and they're
yeah.
funny, or Mr. Bean or something. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
using humor.
Yeah, and then students have to write about it and what they see, and you can turn it into a game. Who can write more sentences,
Yeah.
in the period of time. So humor and learning, whether it's English language or any other content class, I think is a real important part of effective pedagogy.
It is any class, any class. I know we're already talking about like specific things we might do the first couple of weeks, but this does all lead to mindset. I mean, this all is under the umbrella of how am I walking in? What am I thinking about in the Starbucks line when I'm walking in? How am I the best shot these kids have? Not me personally, but education.
Hmm.
How am I supporting the reality? And it is always education is going to be a big part of how they're moving forward and what is their best shot. But that could, again, if it's one day, I want to make sure that the messaging is that everybody's respected in here. This is a safe space. You have people on your side because you're going to meet with people who might not be in your life, but you do have a lot of people on your side. It really, when you walk in the door, I want them to feel that this classroom is the world the way we want the world to be. And that's how we function in here. That's how we treat each other. That's how we're all going to learn most, and how you're going to be able to take with you what a high functioning group of a diverse group of people could be. Um, and so that ally piece, though, uh, when you say I want them to know that I'm an ally, I feel like everything you're doing gives that messaging. Is there anything you would add to that?
Well, yeah, I think there are some specific things that we can do, and some things that I have done. Um, I passed out red cards that people may be familiar with that provide guidance on students' rights and their families' rights, uh, on what to do if if ICE comes to their door. Uh, it's legal information, it's from attorneys.
Yes.
Uh,
And
I I am on a text thread. I mean, many communities have organizations that where people report when they think border patrol or ICE activity is happening in their communities. And just 2 weeks ago, and as part of that text thread, ICE made its first significant raid here in Sacramento, less than half a mile from my old school. And that they did it right before summer school started, and I was able to contact the administrators and teachers at the school to make sure that they told their students and their students could tell their families to stay away from that area, right? I mean, uh, and I think also another thing that would be, important as part of that text thread and as part of many other organizations around the country. One of the things that my wife and I are doing are, going to um, immigration hearings to accompany people. As you probably know, ICE is oftentimes taking people away right from immigration hearings. And we go there just to just to be present and support and to be able to take people's names and tell their families, what happened. And if I was going to teach this fall, I mean, I'd want to let students know that I did that this summer. That just as when our son was in the military in Afghanistan, made sure our Afghan students knew that, we had a family member in Afghanistan,
yeah.
right? That that we've got some, I guess you could say, skin in the game too.
Yes.
And I know some people might be uncomfortable with doing that, but I think that our students, and their families deserve all the support that we can give them. And certainly our school district in Sacramento and many school districts in Northern California, feel the same way. I know that in many districts and maybe more conservative areas, they would not be as supportive of teachers doing that kind of thing. And I don't think anybody should do anything that puts them at risk of getting fired. Okay. So,
Absolutely. You
uh,
mentioned that on another podcast recently. The first thing is be careful.
right. Yeah. That uh, because you getting fired doesn't help you, doesn't help your students, doesn't help their families, doesn't help your family. Okay. So you got to use your political judgment of how far you can go and what you can do. Uh,
Absolutely. We trust if you're listening to this, you use your own filter and your own common sense about what is okay in your reality. But
and
we,
maybe, a simple thing to show that you are an ally is to try to, if you don't speak the language of your students, try to have them teach you some of their language.
well,
Okay.
yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's and if you have multilingual students, multicultural class, have them teach each other some words. I mean, that's a great community building activity to help develop a sense of community and allyship.
This is definitely, but it goes hand in hand with best practice for teaching multilingual learners is that it kind of it goes under relatedness, what you were saying in terms of are you going to have people want to and be motivated, motivate themselves is that relationship piece. So we're not saying, oh, I'm going to be your best friend. I'm showing you that I appreciate diversity, that I'm, and the kind of things that I feel are important is multiculturalism. In your classroom, again, we're offering what we want the world to be. How that's what we're advocating for. So that's how we'll act in here is that way. And then there are opportunities where there are to to connect with students about your own life, where you went to school, where your kids are, all those kind of things is like you're saying, you're just telling about yourself. I think all teachers do that, and each person listening to this can do that to the extent that makes sense for them.
Yeah.
100%. So
Yeah.
I want to shift a little bit before we shift to just a few top tips for the first week or how to start the school year. I always like to offer what I would do on the first day, what I would do in the first week. Um, but I do want to mention I did a podcast with recently with Dr. Francisco Jimenez, and he wrote The Circuit.
All
And
right.
yes, oh
Great
my God,
book.
I know. So many teachers out there have used pieces of it, and I
Yeah.
used it. It's a young adult novel, but he writes through the eyes of the child. They're award-winning books, but he was a migrant worker. He came at 4 years old. The family lived in fear for years, and that was the book, The Circuit, when he's in elementary. And he's talking through the eyes of a student who's trying to gain English and just the hardships of missing huge chunks of every school year.
Right.
And then the second book, Breaking Through, is when he's in middle school and gets deported. They do come into his classroom, they do take him. And he talks about that experience and how traumatic it was. But when you think about it, Larry, and where he is now, a professor at Santa Clara University, award-winning author, they've named elementary schools after him, all these things. All these things. That's why, and he's in his 80s now. And he was kind enough to do an interview with me about what he would offer teachers. And it's in just direct alignment to what you're saying. He says at the very end, make sure they know that you feel for them, that there are people in our community that care about them, and that you know that it's difficult, but don't lose hope. Don't lose hope because anything you learn, you get to keep. And it will serve you. Your education, he says, will serve you a lifetime. So everything that you have said goes exactly in his answer to what he would tell a teacher right now is,
Yeah.
and it's just all in alignment with, this is a long game, life is a journey. We're not saying you're not going to go through difficult things, but I want to show you people who went through those exact difficult things and where they are now. We have examples of people who went through that, and then where it's not the end of the story. So I just feel like that kind of mindset is what we have to, we've always had to have. We've always had to have that. And so you're giving us some real practical ways um, to think about why that is going to be powerful while you're doing the job you're supposed to do of listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English. Of course. So I just appreciate that so much. So I want to make sure that's in the show notes also for people if they want to go and listen to that interview too. Those kind of voices right now, I think, are just so important for mindset. And then the all I'm going to offer is my top 5 tips for the first week of school. And then I'll link to the show that I have a video that has like 10,000 views of for the newcomer teacher specifically.
Oh yeah, it's a great show.
It's so old now, but it's still the same thing I do the first few days. I think it's going to be directly in alignment with the kind of mind that you're saying. So here are the top 5 things, and I'll put the video in the show notes, and that shows. We make a name tent when kids come in, right? The first day of school, right? It's just a little piece of paper. You trifold it, you put your name on it. It's going to help us with the first sentence starter. My name is, I am from, but they're holding a piece of paper that has their name on it, which is kind of safe. And we practice that. So you make a name tent. We're going to do different things with that name tent. And then we play a Kahoot. We play a Kahoot about Miss Salva. And there's some humor in it because it's like I have 3 children. There's a picture, 47 children, and so there's a little bit of humor in that Kahoot, but it's to lower the stress, and everybody can just, echo before we go on. So it's actually a language activity, but I'm showing about my parents are from Mexico. I'm showing, these are the questions, the same kind of thing teachers would do in the first day. Where'd I go to college? How many kids do I have? Where's my family from? And then the next thing we do is I ask them for one trivia question about themselves. It can be how many brothers and sisters, how old you are, but they just played mine, so they know what I'm asking for. One question. And I take those and I make some Kahoots for the next couple of, weeks. We can play those all year, but it's about them. So when they come in the next day, we've got a little Kahoot to play about the kids. So we've got, what have we got? Name tents, a Kahoot about me that sets us up for a Kahoot about them. And there's a social contract that we create. A very simple, but it takes us a few days, but it's from capturing kids' hearts. And it's, how do you want to be treated? How do you think other people want to be treated? We're creating the norms for the classroom. Trying to remember the 5th thing. Oh, we create an instead of I don't know poster, which is step 1 from Sidelet 7 steps. Just here are a few things that you can say instead of I don't know or no sé. Can I ask someone? So those 5 things set up my school year. They make or break my school year. I'll make sure people have those because I kind of take a deeper dive into each one and show people video of what it looks like.
hmm
What are
hmm
your what do you do the first few days or week or so of school?
Uh, when students first come in, the first thing I have students do is uh, a quick assessment, writing set where I just have them, I give them a sheet of paper and ask them to write as much as they can in English and in their home language, either about their best friend or about their family.
Nice.
Because if I don't do that, I don't know if they should be in another class. I mean, because we gotta got to figure that out pretty quickly.
Gosh, that's
And um, so I do that. As you know, the way that we're structured in my school is our ELL classes have lots of peer tutors.
yes.
And I would say, I mean, I don't really understand why any secondary school would not have peer tutors because there's so much research that shows that tutors gain as much, if not more, learning than the person that they're tutoring.
Right.
So, so we have former more advanced ELLs, former students of mine, or students from my other English proficient classes, or students from other classes in the school. They get credit for being a tutor during the period of my class and all of our ELL classes. So what I do is is after I get this quick assessment done, I quickly pair people up with their tutors and we immediately start work on an appropriate level of a book. I have, I like the book Easy Stories that has lots of different levels. And students, I've done some pre pre work with the peer tutors, not a whole lot where they know what they should do, with them and
Hmm.
how to support them, students, working in the book. I generally also have them be practicing with a series of conversation sheets, just simple, oh, how are you? I am fine, right? So uh, I really structure my classroom activities around the peer tutors, where
Okay.
I do brief whole class instruction, and then tutors start working with their tutees,
Hmm.
which works great.
You know,
Students,
go ahead.
but I also have students work on a poster which has a bunch of sentence starters where, my name is, I am from, I like this, I worry about this, those kind of things. And then eventually they do speed dating where everybody presents that with the support of their peer tutors. Play a lot of then I also have I start off immediately with a picture word inductive model on
Nice.
schools. So you have a picture of a classroom, and students first have to annotate their own picture, and then they have to fill in simple closed sentences, and they categorize those closed sentences, and they'll add sentences to that, and then they'll turn those sentences into paragraphs. They'll turn the paragraphs into essays. We do that for the first week. So uh, those are elements. And then also always have, once students learn those initial words, we have either games with the mini whiteboards or quizzes, Wayground or Look It games that reinforce those. I mean, it's easy now with the AI that Look It or Wayground has. You just paste the words that you want reinforced, and it'll immediately create the game. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so that's sort of what I do during that first week. Try to have a fairly solid routine that students first come in, they'll work in the sounds, the easy stories, and then they'll move into the picture word inductive model, do an online game, do some kind of presentation activity, whether it is the introduction, a poster, then we'll do the conversations. So, try to have some routine where we're doing different things, but students feel comfortable in the process.
Yes. Yes. And you're letting them know this is how this class works. This is how we roll in here. It's a very safe way to practice language, marry that with what you already have. They're so different. They're all so different. What they bring with their heritage language. It's important to recognize you don't have any kids in here who have nothing. They
And,
all come with so much.
and I should point out that in class, outside of, maybe the online games that we'll play, we've used very little technology in class. So we really don't need to because the peer tutors function as provide any kind of, support. For home support, online and um, particularly AI support is great for students who may not have anybody else at home who speaks English. They can get a lot of reinforcing and learning from that. I mean, I have a lot of critiques about AI. I think AI provides, in many ways, a gift to second language learners. I think it's more of and probably to students, learning disabled students as well. I think pretty much to everybody else, it's more us trying to minimize its harm. So, but for ELLs who are at home, it's a godsend.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's this whole thing because if teachers really worry about how many minutes they have with these students, but really, if you think about it, that how much they can do when they're not with us. It's not how many minutes you have with me. It's how you understand how you're becoming more fluent and what you need to do to become more fluent. And so there could be it's just such a big bang for the buck when they just start realizing, okay, so if I go home and work with this AI and I just have a conversation with it or I reread what I said and does it understand me, and that all of that is a more powerful, it could just supercharge their fluency work, of course. So I appreciate your ideas. What I'm going to do is reach out to you with when I listen to this again and ask you for direct links because you've done shows on so many of the things that the peer tutors. You've done blog posts and shows about that. Um, all of these things, you have other resources that I could list in today's show notes so people could take a deeper dive um, in all of these kind of things that you've talked about, which I think will be really valuable for anybody listening to see the links of what we've talked about.
Right?
Anything else that you would offer? Because I do want people to just take it. This is not hopeless. It's
Mhm.
by no way hopeless. You are still, education is still the answer. Education is always going to be the answer.
Mhm.
Don't think that 20 minutes in your class or 39 minutes or whatever it is the only education they're getting or come with. And make sure that we're pointing them in the right direction in terms of their mind and what they're thinking. And then, yeah, the activities that we do in class is all in service of that. What else would you add? Anything else, Larry?
Well, I think EL teachers are the luckiest teachers on campus, on any campus. So I would say, bask in that opportunity.
Absolutely. It is the best job in the building, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It really is. We're really fortunate to have the honor of teaching these young people. And I totally agree. And so I just want to thank everybody for listening because I know it can be stressful. I know it can be overwhelming, but remember that it's a long game for you and for them. And we're just going to keep doing the right thing, and that has the biggest effect of what we can do is the kind of things that Larry shared with us today. And so I appreciate you, Larry. I appreciate you so much. So many of us You're the answer. If we need just one, if we were to follow one person, I always say we need a filter for all the things out there. It is Larry Ferlazzo. And so thank
Well,
you so
we've got a mutual admiration society, Carol. So
thank you so much. Okay, we'll stop there, but I will have in the show notes how you can follow Larry, of course, and follow me. And so we'll just appreciate you and tell everybody to have a great school year.
sounds good.
Well, I hope you found that helpful. I certainly found that helpful. Really appreciate Larry. I want to thank him again. Um, he's the kind of voice I need right now. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I am reinvigorated, ready to double down. I hope you are too. My big takeaways from this are it's not that our students and our families are not going to go through challenging circumstances, either now or in the future, but we can help grow people to understand that is not the end of the story. Show them the long game and know that you have such an impact, whether you have them for one day or all year. You're the answer. So thank you for being here. Thank you again, Larry. I did tell you I was going to tell you where we could connect, and there is a very important connection that you can come to for free, a PD opportunity. Larry and I are teaming up again on October 14th for a free webinar on trauma-informed instruction. Sidelets Education is bringing this to you. We are going to be interviewing an expert, Elise White Diaz. She has the new book, Discover, Connect, Respond, A Practical Approach to Trauma-Informed Instruction. Google Elise White Diaz, and you're going to see she is everywhere. And so we're super excited. Larry and I are super excited to interview her on October 14th. You can get that link to register in the show notes today. Again, let me tell you where that is. Just type into your address bar, all in capital letters, bit.ly/BA podcast. All in capital letters. You're looking for episode 128. I don't even think it's on our upcoming events yet, but we already have someone registered. Shout out to Kimberly Thyberg. Hey, Kim, my friend from Ohio. She signed up because I mentioned it on social media. And you can connect with us. Connect with us on social media like Kim did. Larry and I are both on Facebook, Salva blog, if you're looking for me, and he's at Larry Ferlazzo Educator. He's already on TikTok for a while now, doing so much. So find him over there. We're both on Instagram. Just, reach out. We'd love to be connected with you real time like that. And we're in a lot of places. So, let's stay connected. Let's keep each other productive and in the right mindset. I'm wishing you a great school year. Thanks for helping me with my journey. All right. Bye-bye.